lads contacted me, asked me to do a presentation on my learnings from 10, 15 years of operating, but also reading about the top operators in the world of football as much as possible. My PowerPoint skills are basic enough. There's not going to be mind blowing up here. Most of it is just prompts to get me flowing on a bit of a conversation, and hopefully from the conversation there might be a few things that are worth picking up as we go along. I'm also aware that Eamon Fitzmaurice is due on after me. I think this is down for 40. I'll be honest, it runs to about 45. If with 5 minutes left, you need to get out here and get to Eamon, there'll be no offence taken here whatsoever. On you go and get on the road, all right? So just to give you a bit of a heads up on that. So where are we going to try and go with this? What are desired outcomes from the presentation? 3 things. I'm looking to do 3 things, hopefully within 40, 45 minutes. I might have touched on 3 different things. We'll come back to them at the end. So the first thing is, I'm going to try and explain why I believe it's so important to look for learning from outside of your own sport. I realise to a certain extent I'm preaching to the converted here in that you could have gone to hear somebody at the moment who's probably more traditionally GAA, and instead you're here. So, as I say, I'm preaching to the converted a little bit, but at the same time it's worth touching on a small bit. Second thing we're going to try and do is the main body of the presentation. We're going to try and present some of the knowledge that I've picked up from studying how soccer's top managers go about creating their desired culture. We're going to focus on 3 people in particular. You'll see that when we move along. Study is probably slightly the wrong word to use there. It's not like I've done an exam in any of the 3 of them, but I have read massive amounts of them, books, articles. You're watching them 24/7, and more importantly, as you're doing all that, you're constantly making notes, you're constantly scribbling away in a notepad, you're constantly kind of transferring it onto a master plan back on the laptop and all that. Just watching somebody and reading about somebody, to me that's not studying them, that's just kind of, glancing over them a little bit. To really, really pick things up from fellas, you've got to be taking your side notes all the time, you've got to be using a highlighter all the time, and I'd be massively into that. So we'll look at 3 particular fellas in particular, and then we're going to finish up where I'm just going to highlight some of the avenues available for continuous learning outside of those provided by the GAA. So obviously you've got the GAA framework and your foundation and your Award 1, Award 2 and all that kind of crack, but there's so much more opportunity for learning out there, lads. So much more. I'm big into it. I believe in it an awful lot. I think every day you should be trying to pick up something as you're going along. So I'm just going to throw, again, no more than you'll have heard a lot of the other stuff. A lot of these avenues for learning you'll be well aware of already, but there might be 1 or 2 that you weren't aware of, probably more in an informal setting that you might find useful, okay? So, first one, why learn from other sports? So what I've thrown up there is most of the key skills from coaching and management, I believe, are 100% transferable across sports. Obviously, you'll have to tweak them to allow for the different sports and the elements of your game. But if you have a look at those different things, so first one there, communication styles. I mean, don't anybody tell me that I couldn't learn massive amount if I had access and was able to listen to what Jim Gavin is saying to his players in a dressing room or on a training ground. Is he a football manager? Is he a soccer manager? Is he in the same sport as me? Absolutely not. If I had access to hearing what he was saying, how he was communicating with his players, would I learn? Sure, it goes without saying, I'd learn massive amounts. Absolutely no doubt about it. Dealing with adversity, something that any of us who, if you get any, so you don't even have to be at any sort of a level really, at every level, we all have to deal with adversity. And again, how a fella in a different sport deals with it, I could get far more learning from that. I mean, again, there was a podcast there, it must be nearly 6 months ago now at this stage, with Derek McGrath, I think it was the off the ball one, where he talked about the tough times with Waterford and losing games and going to the supermarket the next day and not wanting to make eye contact with fellas for fear they'd want to talk over it and all that, and how he handled that and how he tried to deal with all that. I found that unbelievably, I was able to relate to that hugely, even though he's not my sport. But it doesn't matter. It works 100%. Session planning, without a shadow of a doubt, lads. You can go to a session, and I'll come back to this a bit further as we go along. Go to sessions outside your own sport, and I'm telling you, you'll pick up ideas. Even if it's not the drills, just the structure of, do we do the hard running at the start of the session? Do we do it before the session? During the water breaks, is it seen as downtime or is that a communication period? What way is he talking to them? The session plan, you'll absolutely learn massive elements from other sports from the session planning. Man management, pretty similar to communication style, so I won't go back in it again. And performance analysis, I've gone to the GAA performance analysis seminar in Carlow IT for the last 3 years. Every single year I come away with new ways of how we can do our performance analysis with Galway, with Wexford, whoever is with at the time, much better. Every time I come away with fantastic new ideas from hearing how the Kerry Gaelic football analyst is doing his job at the moment, how the Limerick hurling analyst is doing his job at the moment. Pick up massive, massive ideas. So to my mind, it's crazy, absolutely crazy to want to stick within your own sport and not look beyond that. The different approaches to best practice that other sports take present you with fresh new ideas. So what I mean by that is, while we're all, I think every sport is probably getting a little bit better at evolving their coaching strategy, and it's probably not quite to the same extent a case of, well, this is how I was coached, so this is how I'm going to coach. At the same time, you still tend to stick with the traditions of your sport. Your sport is coached in a particular manner, and it follows on that you tend to coach in that particular manner. Now, if you go to another sport, I'm not saying that other sport does it better than your sport. What I'm saying is they do it differently, and different is good. Different is very, very good. They'll be doing the same as you. They'll be doing it in a tradition that's similar to that's used to their sport, will have elements of how they were coached. Their development will have been the same as you, but it's different. They'll have come through a different sphere. They'll just do it in a different way. And I'm telling you, you'll go and you'll watch and you'll go, how has it never occurred to me to do that? Because you've never ever seen anybody in your sport do it that way. But a different sport does it that way. Yeah, it's definitely worth maybe looking at that. I'll touch on the names as I go along. At Wexford, I brought in Jason Ryan into my setup. Jason had been with Wexford footballers, Kildare footballers. One of the best learning experiences I ever had. Said to Jason from day one, come in, I want you to critique everything. I says, I'll have thick skin, my nose will not be out of joint. I want you to critique everything. Anything you think can be done differently, done better, throw it at me. He was a phenomenal resource for us. Went to Galway, brought Johnny O'Connor, the former Irish rugby player, in as our strength and conditioning coach. Different set of eyes, different way of doing things in their culture, completely different way. Could not, for love nor money, wrap his head around how the hell a performance analysis session was 15 minutes in soccer. He was used to an hour and a half in rugby. You know, different cultures, different ways of doing things, and it just makes you think. It makes you think that the way you've always done it might not necessarily be the best way of doing it. And the last one, and I think this is really important, coaches outside your own sport are often more accessible. And that's natural enough if you think about it. If Paul Kinnerk knocks on Eamon O'Shea's door and says, can I watch Tip Train for the next 2 months there, please? I mean, what's the answer going to be? We all know what the answer is going to be. If Paul Kinnerk goes up to Dublin and knocks on the door, to my mind, as a guy probably fly under the radar of most, he's a guy called Trevor Crowley, is the first team coach at Bohemians. To my mind, I would think he's the best coach in the country in soccer. Paul Kinnerk asks to observe Trevor Crowley's sessions for a month or so. Bet you Trevor won't have any problem with it. In you come, no bother. Paul Kinnerk goes and knocks on Dave Passmore's door and asks, can he observe what's going on with Irish hockey? Can he watch some of the Irish hockey training sessions for next while? Bet you he'll have no issue with it. So there's a huge scope there for getting more access outside of your own sport because you're not a direct competitor of theirs, if that makes sense. So we'll move on to the next one. Creating the culture. The word culture probably has a bit of a bad rep at the moment. It's a bit flowery. It's getting bounced around absolutely everywhere. When I met with Peter gave me a bit of direction on what he wanted from the presentation. I like the fact that he didn't just use culture and move on. He gave me his explanation of culture. He was saying to him, culture is where you have a set of values that you place above everything else, and then that those values are carried out in the behaviours of the coach, all the coaching staff and all the players. And I thought that was a very good way of putting it. So that's what I'm going to try and do with some quotes, either directly from these three fellas or quotes about these three fellas. And I'm going to throw in a little bit of my own experiences in with it as well as we go along. So 4 common themes that emerge from studying those three fellas. And as I say, by studying, in 2 cases, I mean looking at them from afar and reading constantly about them, everything you can get your hands on, in the case of Klopp and Pep, watching body language, watching anything you can get on YouTube, all that kind of thing. Stephen, a little bit different. Obviously, he's a lot closer to home, lucky enough to have somewhat of a relationship with him, and I've seen him working at closer hand, and obviously speaking to his players, always looking to kind of pick their brains as to what they think he does very well. So 4 common themes that emerged from that. Just going to throw the 4 up and then we'll go into each one, right? Togetherness, you can use whatever word you want. Unity, we all know what it means. A team being one and a team being able to work together. Second one, psychological safety. Sounds like a bit of a a jargony one, but I think it's good, and I'll give my explanation as we go along. And I think that's actually huge. I think it's a really, really huge one to all three of those coaches. Confidence, their ability to instill confidence in their players is unbelievable, absolutely tremendous. Probably Stephen, the most. And again, I'll try and give some examples of what I mean rather than just throwing them out there. And the last one, their ability to create a demanding environment. It's a definite common theme between all three of them, and again, we'll touch on the reasons behind that. So, togetherness. We'll throw up Klopp first. So the quote is from his assistant manager, Pep Linders. Jurgen creates a family. We always say 30% tactic, 70% team building. Now, I don't know about you, but that surprised me. I would have thought, that quite a lot of us in the room would probably have flipped it the other way around, or maybe even have said 80% tactic, 20% team building. To think that Liverpool focused 70% of their efforts on the creation of that team unity and that team environment and that team building. I wouldn't think there's too many teams anywhere around the country that focus on it quite that much. And in fairness to them, you can see it in them, can't you? Now I know, look, they're winning. If anything is going to create togetherness, it's going to be winning, all right? But aside from the fact that they're winning, you can see it in them. They look like a group of fellas that get on very, very well. I'm not a Liverpool supporter, but they're very hard to dislike at the moment. I'm sure if you're a United fan, you're managing it, but they are hard to dislike. They seem to have a real bond between them, between the players and management. It's very, very good. And I suppose you look at them and they get on well with the coach. They get on well with each other. I'd say there's not very many cliques and all that kind of stuff in that dressing room. It really is working very, very well. From my point of view, in terms of the actual working on it, so there's no real point on us looking to see how does he create that togetherness, because they probably go off on team bond and things that cost millions of dollars that none of us can afford, right? But practically, it's probably something we should all be looking to do more. And I think, in fairness, I think GAA are probably maybe a step ahead or two of soccer in that sense. It was Jason, when I brought Jason in at Wexford, I don't know if we'd done a huge amount of that kind of stuff, team bond and stuff. Jason was big into it, and he did an awful lot with us, like some mad stuff, some crazy stuff that doesn't cost a penny and might sound ridiculous when I try and describe it back, but it worked. Like, it was this, like, we were in a big hall and they were split into groups of 5, and this group of 5 would be four of them would be put over in this corner here, and they'd all have blindfolds on, and there'd be all sorts of stuff laid out all over the place in an assault course, and one poor had to try and guide him the whole way from there to the far side, around all the various different obstacles and through everything and he couldn't lay a hand on them. He could only talk, he could only communicate to them. Like, mad crack and great laugh got over it, but it does help. It really helped the gelling process. Get them doing stuff like which group of 5 could build the biggest structure out of pieces of spaghetti and marshmallows. Like, I don't know if you've seen this before, where they're all sticking in. The level of competitiveness between them and the crack that they knocked out of it, all that kind of stuff, was really good. And what you're seeing is, you're seeing who your leaders are, you're seeing who your stronger communicators are, you're getting to understand bits about your players and how they all gel in a really kind of informal and enjoyable setting. But as I say, look, really interesting that he places 70% on it. Guardiola, we're here to help each other so that players don't feel tension and division. We are one. We are not little groups, because in all teams, this is what ends up killing the team spirit. And again, it's that thing of trying to avoid cliques is so difficult. Trying to bring the right people into a setting. Now, whereas in a football setting, technically we can pick and choose who we want in our dressing room. We can try and sign a player if you're at a high enough level that you have a budget and stuff like that. But I suppose the practical example with Pep, it actually kind of starts by going back to the fact that he also clearly is a believer of learning from other sports. So Pep, some of you might have heard, Pep has a guy that he places a huge amount of emphasis on. He's brought him with him everywhere. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, but he's like this, possibly the greatest water polo player of all time or something. And Pep has brought him everywhere that he's ever gone. And he uses him for various different things when he brings him in. And so one of the things, when he got the Barcelona job at first, chatting to this water polo fella, what he said to him was, right, during games, when we score, I want you to stare at the bench. And later on tonight, I want you to tell me the reactions of everybody on our bench when we scored. Because there will be 2 or 3 of them who will celebrate as if they scored or celebrated as if they're on the pitch, and it will not bother them that they have not been selected for that game. And there'll be another two, or probably maybe one or two, who will try and fake it, but you'll be able to spot they're trying to fake it, and there'll probably be one or two who don't react at all. They're so pissed off that I didn't pick them today, they won't react at all. And I thought that was really clever, because Pep doesn't have time to do that, he's engrossed in the game. But this guy was doing it, feeding it back to Pep, and within first transfer window, the boys who were identified as being those kind of people, gone. Got them out of there. Not team, they're not team, they don't want to know about it together. Now, on the flip side, I thought, we can all get it wrong. He brought in Zlatan Ibrahimovic, possibly the greatest Mayfair soccer has ever had. And but when he talks about that, he says, because how many of us, I'd say you've often been in this position, he says that he went and he met with Zlatan, that he laid down his pillars, his cultural beliefs, the behaviours that he expected, and Zlatan says, oh yeah, that's me all over, the perception of me is so wrong, and he fooled him. I've been fooled numerous times. I've signed players who managed to convince me that they had the right attitude, but the thing is, how quickly can you identify that was an act? And by the way, the act will maintain while things are going well. But as soon as they hit adversity, they'll revert back to type. And then it's, can you identify that? And now, can you remove them? It's okay to make the mistake, but now you've made a mistake, you've identified it, can you remove them? Last one, Robby Benson, who was a player 2 years under Stephen Kenny. He was fantastic for him. I was a substitute for the first while when I came into the club, but even then he was telling me I was going to become a hugely important player for Dundalk. I never felt ignored. So the togetherness, I won't say it's easy to create togetherness amongst those who are playing, but it's a lot easier. It's that the difficult part is trying to make those outside the immediate starting 11, in my case, starting 15 in your case, trying to make them feel part of it, trying to make them feel like they're playing a role and that you believe in them. That's tough. That's the hard part from my experience, so it is. And here you've got a guy just kind of saying that Stephen was good at that. Stephen was really, really good at that. I mean, you talk to Dundalk players, I would have seen the same. It used to amaze me with Laois senior hurlers. You talk to Laois senior hurlers when Cheddar was there. If you walk into my dressing room when I'm at Galway, right, and you ask 18 fellas what they think of me, I can tell you what they're going to say. The 11 that are starting at the moment are going to say I'm a great fella, and the other 7 are going to say I'm a... that's just human nature. That's how it's going to be. When Cheddar was with Laois hurlers, number 26, number 27 were telling me how wonderful a guy he is and how they'd do absolutely anything for him. And this is the same with Stephen. The non-starters will rave about Stephen. If you can get yourself to that position, now you're flying. So psychological safety, what is it? Simply put, it's that you're able to create an environment where the players don't fear the repercussions of mistakes. That's it. It's somewhat of a holy grail, I think, because I think it's absolutely huge. It's one of the biggest hindrances to performance if it doesn't exist. The examples of it, so this is Jurgen Klopp. The boys know that they can make mistakes. Football is a game of mistakes, but what is important is the reaction. You lose the ball, you try to win it back. You concede a goal, then you try to score a goal. If we want our teams to be creative, then we can't punish them for mistakes, okay? Again, easy enough thing to say, easy enough thing to espouse, good value to have, but from what we're seeing, lads, he lives that. And you only need the one example, and the one example is the Trent Alexander corner. Like, he's a young boy. He's a young boy. It's a Champions League semi-final. It's a massive game. They're behind. It's a huge moment. If he's worried about, if this corner goes wrong, what's the manager going to do to me? Or how are the rest of my players going to react towards me? Which is nearly even more important. It's all well and good, you try, as a coach, trying to create psychological safety, but you've got to create it amongst the players, because to be honest, he can probably handle you roaring and shouting at him. It's when his teammates start roaring and shouting at him that he really gets down on himself, so it is. But he had that psychological safety to say, I'm going to chance it. And if it doesn't work out, I know that I'm not going to be ripped to shreds here. Now, he got payoff in a massive way, but that environment had to be created for Trent Alexander to try that. And I have no doubt, and the other really interesting thing on Klopp as well, actually, and it's something for an awful, because I'm aware that in the room here we've got people at various different levels. Klopp goes on after that quote to say that this cannot be taught in a week or a month. He says this has got to be an ongoing a process that starts from way, way down. So he started talking about the Liverpool Academy and how in the Liverpool Academy this psychological safety is embedded from the time they're 8 and they're 9. So therefore when they reach him at 19, 20, this is the way they've always operated. These boys have no fear because they have never been roared and shouted at in their past. So they don't fear being roared and shouted at. So that's for the, I'm sure there's plenty of people here who are working at grassroots level. If you're able to create psychological safety in your environment for your 9s, 10s, 11-year-olds, I'm telling you, your senior manager is going to absolutely love you by the time they reach 19, 20 and they're risk takers and they don't fear the repercussions of mistakes. Second one on it, Pep. I won't tell you off if you misplace a pass or miss a header that costs us a goal, as long as I know you're giving 100%. I can forgive you any mistake, but I won't forgive you if you do not give your heart and soul to the team. The reason I put that one up there is psychological safety does not mean that nobody ever says anything negative to anybody. That's not a good environment for anybody either. But as a coach, it's up to us to be able to differentiate between the mistakes that are made because of an action. Like, if a fella plays 50 passes in a game, lads, there's a hell of a chance that one of those passes is going to go astray. If that one pass could lead to a goal, he didn't mean to make that mistake. There's very little you shouting at him about making that mistake is going to do. Now, if I'm standing here and my opposition player jogs past me, making a run towards the box, and I think, I'll let him off, somebody else will deal with him when he gets there. Or if there's an opportunity to go into a crunch and tackle, and I'm thinking, I could do without that one. They're different. They're decisions. They're decisions where he's made a decision not to give his heart and soul to the team. Now, lambast him away. As a manager, players, lambast him away. If I'm running through on goal, and it's me and the keeper, and we have a teammate on our left-hand side that I can just square the ball to, and he is an open goal, but I try and take on the trickier opportunity and he saves it. To me, going through that fella for making that decision, I don't think that is in disagreement with the ability to create psychological safety. I think they can both go parallel, because that's a decision. That's a decision where he has made the wrong decision and not made a quick decision in the wrong way. He's just made a greedy decision. So it's not that it's all airy-fairy and nobody kind of criticises anybody, but it's what you criticise for. Stephen O'Donnell, he was Stephen Kenny's captain for a couple of years, brilliant bit of stuff. There's always a plan, and you will know your role inside out, but he also gives you the freedom to go and do your stuff. He trusts you to make your own decisions. So again, can we get that balance right between there is structure, there is a plan, but within that, I'm giving you the psychological safety to say, I trust you to see what's in front of you and to make your decisions on the back of what you see. I also know that sometimes you're going to make the wrong decision, and that might cost us, but that's okay. It's part of becoming a good decision maker. So the practical one from my own experience, if you don't mind, that I'll use there is, so I would have coached a really, really good under-14 team a good few years back, 10 now at this stage, okay? Got to an All-Ireland final, we're beaten in an All-Ireland final, right? On the back of that, they went into international trials, Irish under-15 international trials. We sent half a dozen of them in. I thought probably the whole half a dozen of them would make it. I thought they were good enough. On the back of the trial, one player made the team, okay? I was very, very disappointed about it. Thankfully, I had a good enough relationship with the Irish manager at that age group that I could pick up the phone and give him a quick call and say, geez, I was disappointed. You know, in what manner did they manage to let themselves down? And his feedback just completely changed me. It just completely changed me. He said, Shane, I've seen you all year. You've had a brilliant year. You tell the boys to do this, they'll do it. You tell them do that, pass here, go there, go here, go there. They do everything you say. You tell them to jump off the roof, they'd probably do it for you, Shane. And it's brilliant, fair play. He says, but they come into me, into a trial situation where you're not there to make every decision for them and give them every little detail of what you want done next. They're not able to think for themselves, Shane. They have absolutely no decision-making powers whatsoever. You're killing them. You're killing them. And he was 100% right. He was absolutely 100% right. I thought I was creating a good environment for these players in that I had good relationships with them and all that, but I hadn't created the psychological safety for them to be decision makers and make their own decisions. Absolutely hadn't. Stephen does that. Stephen gives them that freedom. He gives them that freedom within a structure. Confidence, bang through a couple. So this is a very recent one. Klopp talking about Roberto Firmino. He was a bit concerned by his lack of goals, but I told him that he is the only player in the world who can play this position in the way that I need it done. So confidence. Confidence is more than pat on the back, you're a great fella, go out there and do it for me. Confidence has got to be nuanced. It's got to be really, really exact and really, really specific to that person. So just play that out in your mind, right? Roberto Firmino walks into a room, shoulders are probably down a little bit, he's lacking confidence, he's on a bit of a goal drought, all right? He wants to talk to Klopp about why am I not scoring goals at the moment. Klopp doesn't say, they'll come, Bobby. They'll come, relax, they'll come. Be all right, you're a good bit of stuff, they'll come. Okay, he tells him, right, you're not scoring goals at the moment, but Bobby, that's not a concern for us in any way, shape or form. You are the only player in the world who can play the position in the manner that I need it played. Bobby's walking back out the door, 10 foot tall. Now, we get the happy ending then, in that he scores the very next week. He comes and runs across and jumps on top of Klopp. Doesn't always play out that well for us, but I thought that was brilliant. Because, as I say, it's not just, it's grand, the goals will come, don't be worrying about it. Like, that's how you make a fella feel 10 foot tall. That's how you make a fella feel 10 foot tall. Guardiola probably doesn't have to work on confidence a massive amount, let's be honest. He had the best players in the world at almost every dressing room that he's been in. But the quote is interesting. In this dressing room, the players are the best, the very best. This was in the Amazon documentary. Look at each other. You must be so happy at what is looking back at you. I just thought that was a really, really good line because it's very practical. Because they're actually doing it. As he says that, they're doing it. I can imagine, imagine being one of them fellas. Imagine being David Silva and looking and seeing Kevin De Bruyne there and Aguero there. Like, again, you are going to feel, oh yeah, we've got this kind of a thing. Okay, and we're not all in that position that our dressing room is full of the best players in the world. But if you've managed to create an environment, a really, really good environment, where lads are willing to go the extra yard for each other, where that togetherness is there, where all these other boxes are ticked, and you're managing to create a really, really good environment. Instead of, in this dressing room, the players are the best, your line might be, in this dressing room, we have fellas who will go the extra yard for each other. Look around your dressing room and look at each other and have a look at what's looking back at you. What does he say? You must be so happy at what's looking back at you. That could apply. That could absolutely apply. We could well be able to make that statement. So we could. And again, players now walking out dressing room, that's your line 5 minutes before throw-in. I think you'll find them grow a bit and gain extra confidence from something like that. Chris Shields, I'll describe Chris in a minute because it's part of the pitch on him, I suppose. He would take me away for a one-on-one chat and go through what he expected of me, while also explaining why I was the perfect man for the job. Okay, so what can give us confidence? Knowing our role inside out can give us confidence, but then also having it explained to you why your skill set makes you the absolute perfect person to perform this role. Well, now you're flying. Now you're flying. Chris is some players would call Chris Shields limited. They would, because his job is that job where he protects the back four, he puts in a tackle, he wins the ball, and he passes it 5 yards to the fancy dans and to the flasher players. And to some people, that person is called limited. To Stephen Kenny, that person is the perfect, absolute perfect man to fulfill one of the key roles that we need within this team. I think that's brilliant. Of course Chris Shields feels 10 foot tall, because he's been told what the job is, and he looks at a reflection of himself in the mirror based on Stephen's assessment of him and goes, yeah, sure, that's me. Sure, that's me. The role, the person he described as who fills that role, that's me. They're the attributes I have. Another very quick one on Stephen as well is, it's very important, lads, that we tell players how good they are. So often a fella can have a cracking game, and you could go down to the pub and you could tell everybody else how well he played, and you could tell all and sundry how well he played. You might not have told him, and you take it for granted that he knows, but you might not have actually told him. There was a 21s game, Stephen's 21s manager at the moment, there was a 21s game in Tala, where their centre midfielder, he's a cracking bit of stuff, Jason Malumbi, he came off with about 5 minutes left. I'd never seen it done in any sport. I just thought it was brilliant. Jason came off, and Stephen shook his hand as he was walking off. and Jason kind of just went to walk on away and the whole lot. And Stephen turned around to the main stand in Tala and shouts at the crowd, shouts at the stand, shouts at the crowd. Folks, what about that for a performance? Wasn't he brilliant? Everybody give him a clap. And the whole stand starts applauding Malumphey as he was coming off. I thought that was amazing. Absolutely brilliant. Such a small thing, but I'd never seen somebody pull that stunt before. And it was 100% genuine. It was just Stephen didn't feel that he was getting the recognition for the fantastic performance he'd had. I thought it was very, very good. Last one, demanding environment. They are absolutely all able to create a demanding environment. And I'll go through it very, very quick. I demand a lot of energy from my players. Therefore, I must be seen to possess that also. I see myself as being the extra tank of the players. When their energy starts to get less and less late in the game, that is when I must infuse them with my energy. Okay, so Klopp, obviously, Liverpool style is based on huge work rate, huge energy. He can't demand that unless he is that. If he's sitting on the seat with a mopey puss on him and not engaged in the game, like how can he demand that sort of effort from his players? It just doesn't work. And I mean, with some players, with some managers, sometimes you get a feeling that this all energy kind of histrionics on the sideline. Sometimes you get the feeling that that's for the fans and it's kind of an act that's put on. It's a bit of a show. You know it's not the case with Klopp. You know it's not the case. He's so engaged in it. And I just thought that was very, very interesting. That when the players watch. Unfortunately, I'm a Spurs fan. They're playing us this evening, but watch Klopp this evening. Right? Yeah, he'll be kind of all involved from the first minute, but watch when it gets to the last 10. He goes up from third to fourth to fifth gear. He feels now the players might be in danger of tiring here, so now it's up to me to become their extra energy. It's up to me to fill the tank for them, and he'll become even more full of life and even more the man on the sideline. I thought that was good, but it's easy to demand from players. The harder bit is demanding back from ourselves. Pep, every day you must come here and try to get better. Every single day. I can say that I will be very demanding of you, just like I will be of myself. So, I mean, I don't think anybody could ever have any arguments. I mean, the man absolutely lives and breathes the game. It's ridiculous. It takes over his whole life. He's completely obsessed by it. He can put whatever demands he wants on his players because he's going tenfold that every time. And, right, we can't do that. We're not in a professional environment where we can do that much. But I do think you have to put big demands on yourself to outdo the efforts that you're asking of your players. So to give a practical example from my side of things, both with Wexford and Galway United, we always played on a Friday night. There's only a couple of teams that would play on a Saturday night. In the First Division, Longford and Cove, they're always in horrible places. In the First Division, Longford and Cove. In the Premier Division, it was Sligo Rovers. Always horrible drives for me, right? But there was probably too many examples of this for my liking, but you're playing on a Friday night. You're bet 3-0 maybe, right? Bring the players in Saturday morning for a recovery session. You're trying to lift spirits, the whole lot. You're trying to lift your own spirits. All the players want to do is get out there, put football out of their heads and get home to the girlfriends or the family or whatever and not even think about football. You're going home, you're probably getting a quick bite to eat, then you're jumping into the car for a 2.5 hour, sometimes 3 hour drive up to watch whichever of those teams is playing on the Saturday night so that you can get a look at the opposition that you're probably playing the following week. Now, yes, you're doing it to learn about the team. Yeah, of course you're doing it to learn about the team and evolve your game plan. But you're also doing it because when you come in on Monday morning and you put on that presentation for the players are sitting there going, I would rather have done anything on Saturday night than what he put himself through there. How did he find it in him to drive up to Sligo after what happened to us the night before and the form he must have been in? See, they have no excuses now. They have no excuses. If you're after taking the extra step, how can they not try and back you up by delivering that as well? Last one is Gary Rogers. He was Stephen's goalkeeper. He challenges us to constantly look to improve, to always strive to be the best in your position. But he'll also do everything he can to help you to achieve that aim. So it's very, very easy for us to say to the player, I want you to become the best player you can be. But what are you doing to help me get there? What are you doing to help me get there? Now, to be fair to us, lads, there's one of us, there's 15, 20, 25 of them. So I always put it back on the players. I will, in my kind of introductory meeting with the players, I'll always say to them, lads, there's one of me, it's 25 of ye. It's impossible for me to be thinking of ye all as individuals all the time. So ye need to come to me. You need to come to me and say, I'm not happy with this part of my game at the moment. You need to come up with a way of making me better at that. I have no problem with them saying that to me. Now the ball is back in my court, but at least they've addressed the issue and placed that seed in my head. Yes, you're right. That is an issue for you at the moment. I do need to come up with something that helps you in that area of your game. Put the emphasis back on them, and then it's better than otherwise 2 months down the line, he's going to turn to one of his teammates and says, he hasn't given me any advice in the last couple of months. It's not that you were a shite coach, it's hard for you to think of everything. Hard for you to think of everything. Going to wrap up very, very quickly with how can we learn from other sports, okay? Formal. I went back and did a master's in coaching science in sport in UCD under a guy called Dr. Seamus Kelly. Absolutely brilliant fella. Has played Inter-County GAA, played League of Ireland. Super fella. It was a really, really good course. Modules included coaching science, sports psychology, performance analysis. It was excellent. It's demanding. It takes up a huge amount of your time, but some of you may be at a stage of your life where you want to take on something like that. Semi-formal, I went and did the coaching tutor qualification with Coaching Ireland. Really, really, really good. Really good. Teaches you to be a coach. Teaches how to coach coaches, but you'll also learn a huge amount yourself as how to be a coach. Communication styles, outcomes, all that kind of stuff. Watching other sessions, lads, you can't do enough of it, and it astounds me how people don't do this. Get out. I know time is a rare commodity, but when you can, get out and go and watch other sessions. And don't be... Go and watch it at all levels. I've gone to under 10 training sessions at my local club where I saw something done that I'd never done before and thought, right, I'm going to apply that to us. We're particularly blessed in Laois at the moment. With the Laois senior team, we have Niall Corcoran coaching them. With the minors, we have Derek McGrath coaching them. I mean, my God, if I have any interest in learning whatsoever, get up off your arse and go and watch those fellas put on those training sessions. It's such a fantastic opportunity to learn. Integrate other sports coaches into your coaching setup. So I told you what I did with Jason, with Johnny, even in your local town, lads. Have you ever thought about going down to is there a basketball team in your town? Have you ever thought about talking to the local basketball coach, asking him does he want to come in and do something? I was lucky enough to get 4 training sessions last year with Currafin Gaelic footballers, where they invited a soccer head into a phenomenal environment like that. Gave me a topic that they wanted delivered each of the 4 weeks. I delivered it. They picked up little bits and pieces from it. Didn't change the world for them, far from it, but they picked up little bits and pieces from it. I think there's huge kudos for that kind of thing. Very quickly, books. Quiet Leadership is Carlo Angelotti. Brave New World is Pochettino. Can You Manage is a book that slipped under the radar, in my opinion. It's by a guy called Tim Healy. It's a GAA book. It's about 10 years old, but really, really good. And Bounce, I think most people have probably come across Bounce at some stage. Newspaper articles, I'll give you a one-stop shop. Brian MacDonald, he's on Twitter as 6242. If there is a coaching article worth reading on this planet, Brian MacDonald will have it tweeted by the end of the day. He is a phenomenal resource. There is nothing worth reading in the world of newspapers that he will not have out there for you. Okay, if you don't follow him, I'm sure most of you already do. If you don't follow him already, get following him quick. Podcasts, The Coaching Bubble, really, really good one. It comes from the Camogie Association. It's absolutely excellent. Talent Equation, a bit more sciencey, but very, very good. Commit, Enda McNulty is not for everybody, but I found his podcast good. I thought it was quite good, to be honest. GAAR Wooly is definitely not for everybody, but when Cheddar comes on and Cheddar starts talking about coaching, psychology, management, get the notebook out and start writing. Start writing, because he is going to give you an absolute mind of information. So he is, and anything with Derek McGrath. I'd listen to the man forever, forever. Very last one, networking groups for sharing content. I'm in a performance analysis one with a few GAA heads. I've set up one recently. If you want to be added to it, send me a direct tweet or send me an email, something like that. I'll add you into it. We just share some podcasts, we share some coaching content, stuff like that. Hopefully, I've ticked the 3 boxes that we said at the start we were going to aim for. I had said any questions. We don't have time for them. Thank you.